Hello, welcome to this Wellness Wednesday. We're so thrilled that you're here with us. Wellness Wednesday is all about bringing awareness to different kind of health topics and the solutions that we can come at from a holistic perspective. And also tying in that there's something called activation that can absolutely help you. We believe that to be well, you fix the cell. To live well, you fix the cell. It all starts with root cause health and being preventative and proactive. And my name is Shauna Mucklow, and I have been a wellness warrior for about 9 years. I live in the Midwest, in the middle of the US, and I feel like in the Midwest, we just maybe didn't have the knowledge that some people had, and we just took what was true, that what was on the shelf is what we should eat, and all of the things and what the doctor said is what we should believe, and we just blindly went along. And my eyes were opened a little bit to proactive health 9 years ago, and I've just been seeking to learn every day since and get better and better and better, and also give myself grace that I didn't know what I didn't know, but now I know, and so now I can choose to do better. And today I am thrilled to be with my friend Dr. Jeff, who has an incredible background that you're going to hear about in a second. And we're going to talk about something that's really passionate to all, I think, to the world, right? It's a huge epidemic, right? The obesity epidemic, and how we can really conquer this once and for all, and really give people hope is what we're here to do, is give people hope. So I am going to let Dr. Jeff speak, but Dr. Jeff has an incredible background, orthopedic surgeon for like that's his past background, but he currently has a practice in regenerative medicine and a med spa down in Florida, and he helps people look and feel their best all the time, like that. And you're going on your own journey, which I think is absolutely incredible
Yeah,
as well,
absolutely.
Dr. Jeff. Will you tell people a little bit more about you and how you got into like really diving in the topic of obesity and why that's one of your passions?
Thank you again for inviting me to Wellness Wednesday. This is absolutely amazing. I love being able to speak on the topic of wellness and especially on the topic of obesity. I always like telling the story before I even tell about myself. I have struggled with weight probably since about the eighth grade. I was about 200 pounds when I finished eighth grade. I had a brief stint. I was playing football at the time, so I played football all during middle school and then 4 years of high school. I was lucky enough to then walk on at Penn State, and I played 4 years at Penn State. And then again, was lucky enough to get drafted in the NFL. So I played 2 years in the NFL before going to med school. But I've always dealt, when I was playing in the NFL, I was 200 and anywhere between 285 and 300 pounds. And once I left the NFL and I stopped working out several times a day and practicing several times a day, I was sitting in a library several hours a day learning medicine. And all of a sudden, the muscle that I had was turning into something else, that bad three-letter word, fat. And weight escalated as high as 380, 385 pounds. And so I have struggled with the obesity problem all my life. A little bit about me. So, yes, as you said, finished medical school, went on to a 5 year residency in orthopedic surgery, practiced conventional orthopedic surgery up until 2009. In 2009, I started seeing the shift in the paradigm of medicine. I started seeing the fact that doctors were no longer in control of their patients. The people that were in control were essentially one of two things. They were either the insurance companies or big pharma, because they were really telling us what we had to do. The big pharma reps would come in and they'd offer us all kinds of prizes and toys for writing their prescriptions. And luckily, that's gone to the wayside. There's been some congressional legislation 10, 12 years ago that changed what they could do. But I mean, they would offer you, weekend trips in their private jet out to Palm Springs to play golf for the weekend, or play at Pebble Beach for the weekend, or fly to this conference and you speak for an hour and we'll put you up for a whole week at a nice resort. And that's all gone to the wayside, but that pressure was always around. And then the insurance company started taking control. And the final straw was October of 2008, when my billing girl walked into my office and she slid a piece of paper across my desk. And it was an explanation of benefits, or what's called an EOB. And it was for a knee replacement that I did August of that year, where they paid me $875. And I knew that $875 for my 2 hours in the operating room and then 90 days of care after surgery wasn't going to pay the bills. I'd been playing around with something called platelet-rich plasma for probably 7 years at that point and been doing research. And I knew that we could regenerate tissue instead of replace tissue. And so I went down that road, and that's where I kind of started in the regenerative field. And as I progressed in regenerative medicine, then I realized that there was even a bigger problem. The bigger problem was that yes, we had the technology to help regrow cartilage in knees or regrow ligaments and tendons in the rotator cuff, but we weren't addressing root cause. And I think that's the primary problem in medicine today. And the primary problem in our healthcare system is that nobody addresses the root cause of problems. And so I started looking at more what root cause was for a lot of the issues I was seeing. And a lot of the issues I was seeing stemmed from obesity. And so I started diving into that. And because it was really close to my heart, because I had the issue since, like I said, I was in the 8th grade, I really started looking at how we could address that root cause problem. And there wasn't a good answer. I had tried all the diets. I had tried, I mean, as comical as some watermelon diet, cabbage soup diet, but then, calorie restriction, doing Weight Watchers, and then, low carb and keto and Atkins and HCG and fen and everything that was out there I tried. And the problem was is as we would lose weight, and then as soon as we stopped whatever we were doing, whether it was diet or exercise, the weight would come back on. And that makes you a yo-yo dieter, and then that's another problem. And so I really started looking at the fact that we don't have a healthcare system in the United States. We have a sick care system. And most doctors look at the problem. You come in with an illness, and they will give you a big pharma drug to take care of that illness. Nobody looked at things like if you had high blood pressure, the problem wasn't the fact that you had a heart issue. The problem was is that you were taking in too much salt and you were too heavy and you were eating too much and you weren't exercising. But those lifestyle changes are hard. But doctors don't like to talk about hard things. They would rather write a prescription and give you a piece of paper to get a drug to control your blood pressure, where really they should be telling you all the good things that you need to do. And so it wasn't up until recently that I really realized that there was a way to address the root cause of these problems. And what really dawned on me, even in this year, was the fact that I looked back, we're in 2025. So go back to 50 years from that point to 1975. And I know, Shauna, you're too young to remember 1975. It's funny, my wife is 15 years younger than me, and I talk about 1975, and she said, well, that was the year I was born. And so she doesn't really remember 1975. But what I can tell you is I can think back to my small town in Pennsylvania in 1975, and there were really two people that were obese. That's all I can remember. It was a brother and a sister, and they were in a rock band. They were probably maybe 5 years older than me. And she sang and played a guitar, and he was the drummer. They were in this band, and they're both deceased because nobody ever addressed their obesity. And I think it's a tragedy. But if we look back at 1975, and I just heard something on the internet yesterday. It was an interview with President Trump, and whether you like President Trump or not, I think that he's trying to make changes in the American healthcare or wellness system. And he was talking about what's happened, and he was going back into the 70s as well. And he said autism spectrum disorder didn't exist. Cancer rates in kids have skyrocketed since 1975. There wasn't an obesity epidemic. Obesity in 1975 in the United States was 10%. It's now 42% nationwide, and we have 5 states that are above 49%. Nobody's pushed the 50% mark yet. West Virginia is at 49.8. So we're pushing to a 50% obesity rate in the United States, but we're not doing anything about it because really nobody wants to address that issue. The National Institute of Health has come out and said by 2031, there'll be 29 states with an obesity rate of over 50%. But what are we doing about it? So if we
Yeah,
look
it's
back,
time we have to do something about it, right? Like it really is time. I think all the time, my husband is a mental health practitioner, right? And so we've just been talking about those statistics you just mentioned a lot recently about like, of course, there are like we're recognizing there's ways to identify things like we've made super advancements in science. However, we all can agree, every single person on the planet can agree that we live in a toxic world that is
no
attributing,
doubt,
whether it's our food sources or whatever, the EMFs that, right, like the pest, all of it contributes to malfunctioning and dysfunction in our bodies,
absolutely.
for ourselves, for our kids. I think the one statistic that we probably listened to a similar interview, the one statistic that it astonished me was for the first time in any generation, this will be our kids are going to live less years and less healthy years than we are
Absolutely.
predicted to live. And that broke my heart.
Yeah,
That's the world we're living in. But the good news is there's so many different solutions, right? Now, when you've been digging into root causes, like and finding, hey, there's some common threads, right? Not only that can help with obesity, but to help with a lot of things. What are you finding to be some of those like root causes?
yeah. So if we look back to now in 1975, most of our food was grown within 100 miles of where we lived. I lived up north. I lived in Pennsylvania. We didn't get oranges in the winter because oranges were grown down south and they didn't truck them all the way up to Pennsylvania. Most of the meat was grown locally and processed locally. All the vegetables that we ate in the summer were grown locally, processed locally. Now, to shop on the outside aisles of the grocery store is very expensive. So we shop in the inside aisles. So the inside aisles is all the ultra high processed foods. So if you look back to what's different between 1975, low obesity rate, early menopause didn't exist, men didn't need testosterone therapy, autism didn't exist. Why? Cancer rates in kids were really low and now they're high. Why? What's changed? The only thing that's really changed is the environment and the foods that we eat. So if we don't control that, then we have to do something else. And I think we can help it. I mean, obviously, the goal would be everyone shop at like Whole Foods, but most people can't afford that. My wife always thinks I'm going to get assaulted in our local grocery store. We go to Publix and I'll look at people's grocery carts in front of me and they're filled with ultra high processed foods, boxes of cereal and frozen pizza and chips and things. But the problem is that's what they can afford. And I always want to ask them, like, why is that what you're shopping for? Why is your cart full of this? And she said somebody's going to like just punch you one of these days for asking. But I think the answer is people can't afford to live healthy. And the answer is we have to do something about oxidative stress. And this is my third big run in network marketing. I did Monavie back in 2008, and with Monavie, they had an antioxidant drink that was mostly made of the acai berry. And it worked, but it didn't work great. And then I was in another weight loss company, and people were losing weight, but once again, it wasn't long term. They were putting it back on once they stopped the product. So I think the combination now is we've got to look at this vicious cycle. And this is why I finally think I figured it out. I figured out what the obesity epidemic is and why yo-yo dieting has been my entire life. I would lose 100 pounds and I'd put 120 back on, and then I'd lose the 120 and put 80 back on, and then I'd lose that 80 because we never address the root cause. And the root cause is mostly oxidative stress, because if we look at oxidative stress, well, what does that do to our body? Well, it lowers all the hormones that are associated with metabolism. So it lowers thyroid hormone, it lowers testosterone, it lowers estrogen in women, it lowers human growth hormone. and it lowers GLP-1. And if we don't address GLP-1, we can never ever get back to a normal weight, because the
Yeah.
problem is there's so many things that can lower GLP-1. And if you think about it, it's all the things that are associated with obesity. GLP-1 is, yes, lowered by oxidative stress, but it's lowered by yo-yo dieting. It's lowered by emotional eating. So if you're eating not because you're hungry, but because you had a bad day at work, or because you're depressed because you had a fight with your spouse, or you're on your way home from work and you're in traffic and you decide, rather than wait to get home, I'm going to pull in McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. I'm going to pull in McDonald's, or I'm going to pull into Starbucks and get whatever the slushy things are that they do. And but that's all calories that you don't need. You should just wait and eat healthy when you get home. So when you combine ultra high processed foods, oxidative stress, yo-yo dieting, stress eating, they're all going to lower GLP-1. Until you get your GLP-1 levels up, that's not going to get better. So Big Pharma figured it out. Big Pharma 2018 decided, oh wait, we can manufacture GLP-1, but it's not the answer. Because if you give GLP-1 from an outside source, what doctors refer to an exogenous hormone, so the little jab in the belly once a week to raise your GLP-1 levels, well, the response to that is your body stops making it. So what happens when you take it away? Well, when you take it away, your body's levels of GLP-1 are zero. So now what do? In the first 8 weeks, you put 20% of the weight back on. The NIH just in under a year ago released a study, National Institute of Health, and they said that people that are taking the GLP-1 medications, 90% put on 66% of their weight back in the first year. So what
It's wild. Yeah, it's
it's
wild to think.
yo-yo dieting
Yeah.
with Big Pharma profiting from it. So it's
Yeah.
not a solution. It is another cash grab from Big Pharma to promote yo-yo dieting. So
Yeah.
there is,
It's real. I want to point out just a couple things because maybe a couple people on this call, maybe this is their first introduction to the word oxidative stress. When my doctor um, told me about, we're going to give you a couple solutions that's really going to help you, that's literally transformed mine and Dr. Jeff's life here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned with us. But back in 2016, my doctor, general practitioner, is who reached out to me about oxidative stress and said, listen, we have run across a product that is literally going to be the future of wellness. And I said, I'm sorry, but I don't know what oxidative stress is. And so let me explain to you how I think about this in case this is your first time that you just heard about it and you're like, okay, wait, I just heard it's bad, but what the heck is it? So, you, as an average human being that lives in 2025, we have 300 sextrillion, what's called free radicals, coming into our body on a daily basis. Free radicals we get from breathing, from the food we eat, right? All the stuff Dr. Jeff just talked about. However, you have, so each one of your cells, this is going to be a cell. This is my little layman's practical way of explaining oxidative stress. This is your cell. These are these free radicals. The average human has 10,000 hits, meaning hits, banging into your cells on the daily. Think about what can happen over days of 10,000 hits every day from these free radicals. What is going to happen to your cell? That's oxidative stress. Damage to your cell is oxidative stress. Well, root
absolutely.
cause is cells run your body, right? Cells run your body. So that is literally horrible, horrible. Bad cells lead to bad things in your body, including lowering your hormone levels. So let's talk about GLP-1. I'm sure you've heard about what GLP-1 is. It's on every other commercial, I think, on television today. But GLP-1 is a hormone that lives inside of your body. People aren't aware of that. They think that it's an injectable shot or something. But it's a hormone that lives inside of our body. Dr. Jeff, explain what the GLP-1 hormone is responsible for inside of your body.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we're learning more almost every day. I'm an avid reader. I'm usually up around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I spend my first 2 hours going through research articles about whatever I'm interested in at that time. And right now it's obesity, GLP-1, oxidative stress. But GLP-1 is manufactured in the gut. And when it first came out, We came out with Ozempic first in around 2018. Um, we thought it mainly worked with digestion. It would slow the digestive process. It would help glucose and would help insulin push glucose into the cells for more energy. It would downregulate something called glucagon. So GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. And so what it does is it looks like glucagon in the body. So glucagon goes up as insulin comes down. So when we eat, insulin goes up, it pushes glucose into the cells. As the glucose gets pushed into the cells, insulin then drops and glucagon goes up. Well, when glucagon goes up, we get hungry again. If it goes up too high, we get hangry. So that's when you're driving home from work, you're in traffic, and it's like, shoot, I'm not going to make it home. I'm pulling in McDonald's and I'm getting a Big Mac and a fry and I'll eat it in the car. That's from glucagon. So glucagon like peptide 1 will downregulate that glucagon, it'll push it back down. So it helps slow digestion. It keeps food in your gut longer. It makes you not hungry as fast, but that's not the key. Here's the big key. The big key is there's glucagon like 1 receptors or GLP-1 receptors in the brain. And those receptors are in the pleasure center. So what's the pleasure center? The pleasure center is when we eat a nice meal with family or with friends, we get that euphoria. Well, it's that pleasure. Or when we drink alcohol, or when we take drugs, or when we get nicotine from cigarettes, that's activating the pleasure center. Well, GLP-1 receptors downregulate that response in the pleasure center of the brain. So now your cravings go away. So it's not so much slowing your digestion, it's taking away the cravings. And I'll tell you, I always tell this it started as a joke. I've always looked for this group, this self-help group, Oreos Anonymous. I haven't been able to find it, but I was an Oreo addict. And I'll tell you the backstory. My son has a dairy allergy. Most people don't realize that Oreos have no dairy. I mean, a lot of chemicals that are really bad for you and things that give you horrible amounts of oxidative stress and all this artificial junk, but there's no dairy. So we've always had Oreos in our house because it's the one snack that our son could eat. Well, I work mostly from home. I have people that run my medical clinic. I go in there maybe once a week, but I work mostly from home. So I would walk into the kitchen on the way to my home office, and the pantry would call out my name. Hey, there's Oreos. And I would grab 2. Mid-afternoon snack, I'd grab 2. After dinner for a little dessert, I'd grab 2. Later at night with a cup of coffee before bed, I'd grab 2. So I had a 6 to 8 Oreo a day habit. What does that do to your weight? And what does it do to your oxidative stress? So I needed something to control my cravings. And then I realized GLP-1 would do this. And even before we talk about the amazing product that we're going to talk about, I did the Ozempic thing. I went on Ozempic about 2.5 years ago, and it worked. It cut my cravings, it slowed digestion, but it also took away muscle mass. And I had diarrhea 6 to 8 times a day for 8 months. It's not a long-term solution. And then I stopped it. And then I put on the 80 pounds that I took off. Not a long-term answer. So I'm glad to say that now I'm taking something. I'm down almost 80 pounds since October 12th. So about 7.5 months, I'm down 80 pounds. But I have not had an Oreo since October 12th.
That's awesome.
And Halloween, we live in a subdivision in Ocala, Florida that is known for trick or treat. Like everybody in the subdivision decorates their house, lights, figurines, things. We had 600 trick or treaters for Halloween. So we had tons of candy, bags and bags. We actually ended up running out. I don't remember. We had like 28 bags of candy. We ran out with like 20 minutes left in the 5 to 8 p.m. time slot. So we didn't even have enough. But I had one little mini Hershey's bar. That was it. That was my entire candy consumption because the cravings are gone. So I
That's
think that if you can, oh, and then we'll get back to GLP-1. So, and it's protective to the heart. So the studies from Big Pharma show that if you have increased GLP-1 in your system, it decreases your risk of heart disease and heart attacks. Increased GLP-1 protects your kidneys. It decreases fat around your liver. It's protective to the brain. So GLP-1 has all these other effects other than slowing digestion and helping you lose weight. So the ultimate root cause is if we can control A, our hormones that are associated with metabolism, thyroid, testosterone, estrogen, human growth hormone, GLP-1, we can upregulate those by decreasing oxidative stress, and we can build up our GLP-1 levels not for a week while you're getting the shot, but long term, even once the process is over, we have now the long-term solution to the long-term problem of obesity, which we have never ever had before. It has never ever existed. The only solution that we had were short-term fixes for a long-term epidemic. Now we have it.
I think we're going to unveil that solution to you in just a second. A little bit about my story. I feel like since I have started using this GLP-1 natural activation system, I feel like my brain has been rewired. That I knew, like I've been learning for the last 9 years, right? All the healthy choices I should be making on the daily. But like you, it wasn't always easy because I had this little devil voice on my shoulder. You should get the chips. You should eat this, right? Like it wasn't simple to make the healthy choices. Now, all of a sudden I'm like, it's simple to be healthy. I know what to do and it's easy to do it because something has been rewired within my system, which is now I know is my GLP-1 is working correctly and my oxidative stress is low. And so
Mhm.
now my body can effectively tell me what it needs. And it's really simple instead of my body like playing tricks on me. I always say it's better for your body. It feels really good when your body's working with you instead of against you. And I feel like my whole life, my body's maybe been working against me because I'm like you, Dr. Jeff. I've struggled with my weight since I was in middle school. And I'm happy to say that I am down 30 pounds, feeling fantastic and continuing to lose inches. So I
Oh, no,
feel great.
amazing.
So let's
We
talk
asked
about
that.
those two products.
Yeah, well, we asked that question in our office. One of the, I tell, when I teach my new providers, about weight loss and about hormones and whatnot, you know, one of the questions that we'll ask, and I'm probably more blunt about it because I'll just come out and say, when was the first time you thought you were fat? Because that hits home. You say, when was the first time you thought you were overweight? Or when was the first time, you had weight issues? That's soft. But if I say, Shauna, when was the first time you thought you were fat?
Fifth grade. I know exactly
Yeah,
when
I
it
mean, it
was.
hits
Hmm.
home, and so we ask it that way because it makes people think, and it gives that emotional response that you want because then you
Hmm.
think back, yeah, I got made fun of in middle school, I got made fun of in high school, I couldn't find a date to the prom, whatever those things are. I wanted to play sports, but I was too big, I couldn't do it, and so that's the question, and we find out just like you and I said eighth grade, you said fifth grade, but we have people that tell us, yeah, fourth grade, it was, oh,
Hmm.
my freshman year of high school. Oh, I didn't really notice it until I got to college. And then, I was out partying and eating pizza every night and I put the weight on. And then they've struggled 50 years
Hmm.
and they
Yeah,
can't get
it's
anything.
so nice to know. Like that's what we mean by like there's hope, and there is some. It's called activation. If you're not familiar and you haven't heard of activation, it's really about nutrigenomics. It's a big long science word, but it's basically about how different blends of nutrients can affect your genetics, turn things on, turn things down, balance things inside of your body so that they work correctly again. Because we just talked about it. Everything's kind of been destroyed by this environment and the foods we've eating. So we have to get things back to balance. So two products that we just quickly, we're not going to go into all the details. The person who invited you can share every bit of the details, but this is your solution. Your solution and your hope. Two products, Protandim NRF2. Let's start with that one. One pill a day, and that is proven to reduce your oxidative stress 40% in 30 days. Dr. Jeff, how important do you think that product alone is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the product that LifeVantage has had since the beginning. And if we look back at kind of the history of nutrigenomics, it all started in the late 1990s with the Human Genome Project. And that was published, I think, first published and released in 2003 or 2005. LifeVantage came out with Protandim NRF2. And so it was the first real activation product. And I think that you said it right. Activation is giving the body the building blocks it needs to make something, to open up a gene pathway to make something. So the make something with Protandim NRF2 is something called superoxide dismutase, or SOD. And you were talking about how many free radicals attack us. Well, one molecule of SOD can neutralize 1 million free radicals. So let's put that in perspective. 220 pints of organic blueberries equals 1 million free radicals. So think how many blueberries you'd have to do. If you take one Protandim a day, you could neutralize 18 trillion free radicals. So you can see the how complex and the degree of exponential growth you can have with SOD and with Protandim compared to what you can get in your diet by eating even healthy things.
And
So
basically, what that equates to, y'all listening, is your cells, every time that they cell replicate, your cells die and replicate themselves, is you can get a little bit healthier cell. The next time it replicates itself, a little bit healthier. Imagine if you can now change the trajectory of you having healthier cells, because if cells are expected to run your body, you want your cells to be healthy. You couldn't get any more root cause than that.
no, and if you Google oxidative stress and disease on PubMed, there's 220 diseases that are proven to be linked to oxidative stress. So, if you can try to eliminate all of those, just think how much healthier you're going to be. And
Oh,
like I
goodness.
said,
It's
tons of
exciting.
articles on how it affects hormones.
Yeah,
So if you can upregulate all your hormones again, then you're on the right road. But
absolutely.
now we need to talk about one of the big
Yes.
hormones that is leading to the obesity epidemic, which is GLP-1.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the second product we want to make sure that you're aware of, and it's very important, especially if you want your body to be in alignment and that GLP-1 to be thriving inside of your body, which of course can lead to weight loss because it's almost like a little bit of a metabolism reset, helping your body think like it's supposed to again. So it's called the mind body system. It's a two-part system, 2 pills a day and a powdered drink. That it's really important that you do the combination, because the combination is a dual activation to make sure that you're giving your gut the right environment for that GLP-1 to start raising. And so talk about that mind body system just a little bit, Dr. Jeff.
Yeah, so exactly like you said, it's mind, because we've already talked about the connection with GLP-1 receptors in that pleasure center. So that's going to help with the cravings. It's going to help with your thought processes. It's just going to make you overall have healthier thoughts about your relationship with food. It's going to decrease those cravings. And then the body part, we know that the GLP-1 hormone is made in the lining of the gut, something called L cells. And so if we can give those L cells what they need to make more GLP-1, then that's going to start in the digestive process. It's going to make more insulin in the pancreas. It's going to downregulate glucagon. It's going to slow digestion. We're going to get more of our nutrients absorbed into the bloodstream. So that's why it's working. It's working on both aspects, the mind aspect, decreasing cravings, and the body aspect to slow digestion and get more out of your food.
It's so exciting. And I just want to put a caveat here. Like, it's not like we're not saying this is a magic bullet. It's not like you take these products and you lose a bunch of weight. Like, that's not necessarily how it works. If you're still choosing to drive through McDonald's every day and eat the Big Mac and the French fries or the pizza and the beer and like all the things, do you have to eat perfect? No, because I am not perfect for sure. But it will help you when your body's in alignment and your body is working with you. Here's what I can ensure you. It is proven that this will activate that GLP-1, that when you lower the oxidative stress, your body will start getting the right signaling, which I think will shock you. It's shocked me. All of a sudden I know when I'm full instead of eating too much portions. But I have to be responsible to stop eating when I know my body's full. I also, now that I don't have that devil on my shoulder anymore, it's like it's completely gone. I need to listen to this voice and eat the vegetables and eat the right proteins. I know what's healthy for me, but it's my choice to put that in my body. The beautiful part is my body now knows how to use that fuel that I am putting in, or food in, as fuel for my body. And it's not being miscued of all the insulin and all the crazy stuff that was happening. Blood sugar stays balanced, which, by the way, gives you energy through the roof when your blood sugar can stay balanced all day long. It's absolutely beautiful. Anything to add, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, I've had my own weight loss journey. And like I said, since October, I'm down almost 80 pounds. And yes, you're absolutely correct. It's multifactorial. Yes, I'm eating less. Yes, I have decreased cravings, but I'm also focusing on making sure I get enough water in every day. I mean, we should be drinking at least a half an ounce for every pound of body weight. I'm making sure that I'm getting enough protein, which, we should be getting an ounce of protein for about every 2 pounds of body weight that you have, or 1 kilogram of body weight. I decided to watch my blood sugars to see what my blood sugars did. So I got this little device on the back of my arm. It's a Lingo, because you can buy them now just on the internet. You don't need a doctor's prescription. So I can see what my blood sugar does. If I cheat and have a piece of pizza and I see my blood sugar shoot to 200, that gives you incentive to say, why am I doing this? I shouldn't cheat and eat pizza. I can find, a cheat date now is I might eat a little more fruit, or, something like that, but because fruit does have sugar in it. But you can really watch and see what your body does. So yes, it's absolutely multifactorial, but this gives you the tools your body needs to help you along that journey.
I completely agree because I was trying to do all the right things before and it was hard. It's like my body was working against me.
And
It was
and it's
hard.
honest. I figured it out now. It's not about diet. It's not about willpower. It is about getting your body aligned with the right tools to make you lose weight. I mean, people would say, "Well, you're not losing weight. You're not able to get down to a normal weight because you don't have the willpower to do it." Willpower has nothing to do with this, because if you're at a disadvantage where your hormones are already depleted, you can have all the willpower in the world and it's not going to help you lose weight. It's more than that. And this is finally the long-term solution for the long-term problem.
I love it. I couldn't have said it better. I think that that's where we'll leave you. Get back to the person who invited you here today. If you have more specific questions on those products or activation in general, there is hope. And just stay patient and stay consistent and be in contact with the consultant, your consultant, to help you along your journey. Thank you, Dr. Jeff, for joining
Thank you,
us.
Shauna, so much for inviting me.
Have the best day.
All right, you too now.